Thank you, Jen. Before I formally start this meeting, I will go to each subcommittee member to confirm that they can hear and be heard. This is a requirement for me to do so under the Local Authorities and Police and Crime Panels, Coronavirus Flexibility of Local Authorities and Police and Crime Panel Meetings, England and Wales Regulations 2020. So if you could verbally confirm that you are able to hear me, and I will confirm in response that I can hear you. Where practicable, please also have your video switched on so that you can be seen by other members in attendance and the public watching. Councillor Elizabeth Foxton, can you hear me?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I can see and hear you.
Thank you, Councillor Foxton. Councillor Tony Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I can see and hear you.
And are you, Councillor Johnson? Thank you. And finally, Councillor Jeremy Milne.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can see you and hear you.
And are you, Councillor Milne? Thank you. I'd also like to request that officers and other attendees confirm that they can hear and be heard. First of all, Emma Bowell from the Licensing Authority.
Yes, I can hear you and see you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Emma. And are you? Sarah Buffley, Clerk to the Committee.
Yes, I can see and hear you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah, and I can hear you. Alice McAlpine, the Legal Advisor to the Committee.
I can see and hear you, Chair.
Thank you, Alice. Eleanor Awath Bahari, Trainee Solicitor.
Yes, Chair, I can see and hear you. Thank you.
And are you? Thank you, Eleanor. As in Aris Tezins, Aris, I should know your name by now.
Should do. I can hear and see you. Thank you.
And thank you. I can hear and see you. Chung Tse and Environmental Health.
Thank you, Chair. I can hear and see you.
And are you? Thank you very much. And for the applicants, Mr. Nick Semper.
Good afternoon, sir. I can hear and see you.
And are you, Mr. Semper? Good afternoon. And Alison Rogers, the applicant.
Yes, I can see and hear you.
And I can see you and Mr. Needs accompanying you there. Good afternoon to you all. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's meeting. The Council is video and audio streaming this meeting live on the internet and making an official recording. The recording forms a part of the public record of the meeting and will be available on the Council's website. Please note that while it is only a legal requirement that you have your audio switched on, it is the Council's preference that, where you are able to do so, that you also have video switched on. Please remember that what you say and do in this meeting has a global reach, and your words and actions, therefore, should be carefully chosen. May I also remind members to ensure that they are wearing their headsets while listening and speaking during the meeting. This will ensure that the audio quality is of the highest possible quality and background noise is kept to a minimum, especially if there's somebody mowing the grass outside your door. As these are extraordinary circumstances, there are some additional points for members and officers to be aware of. As part of our meeting etiquette and in line with our normal committee practices, all microphones apart from mine will be placed on mute at the start and during the meeting. I will run through the agenda in the customary way. When you wish to speak, please use the hand button against your name in the participants lists, which should be on the right of your screens. I will then invite you to speak in order of the raised hands being raised. Please remember to unmute yourself to speak and mute yourself again when you have finished. Please do not raise your physical hand, as I do not wish to miss anybody who may wish to speak. Please note that the chat facility has been turned off to ensure that members' contributions can be offered through the spoken voice and for the public record. Could you please ensure that all mobile devices are switched off to prevent interference with the audio and video system? If any attendee loses connection, the meeting will be paused to ascertain if the connection can be restored quickly. If it is not possible to recover the connection within a reasonable amount of time, the meeting will continue as long as a quorum of committee members remains able to hear the proceedings and be heard. If you plan to leave before the end of the meeting, please can you indicate to do so in advance. Where committee members are required to vote on an item, I will ask each committee member in turn to indicate verbally if they are for, against, or abstaining. The results of the roll call will
Sarah, can you confirm if we lost the chair?
I believe we may have done. Yes, he's frozen on my screen as well.
Can I ask permission to just pause the stream, Alice?
Yes, please do.
Apologies to those watching on YouTube. We have an internet crash issue, which means that I will now go through the whole of the attending members, if they can see and hear me again. First of all, members of the committee, Councillor Elizabeth Foxton.
Thank you, Chair. I can see and hear you.
Thank you, Councillor Foxton. Councillor Tony Johnson.
Can see and hear you clearly, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. And finally, Councillor Jeremy Milne.
Yes, I can see and hear you perfectly, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. And now, officers, Emma Bowell, the Licensing Authority.
Yes, I can hear you and see you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Sarah Buffrey, Clerk to the Committee.
Yes, I can see and hear you, Chair.
Thank you, Sarah. Alice McAlpine, Legal Advisor to the Committee.
I can see and hear you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Elena Awaf Bahari, Trainee Solicitor.
Yes, Chair, I can see and hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen Priest, Government Support Assistant.
Yes, I can hear you and see you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And from the Environmental Health Team, Aris Trezins.
Yes, Chairman, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
And Chung Tse from Environmental Health.
Yes, Chair, I can hear and see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the applicant, Mr. Nick Semper. Can you hear me, Mr. Semper?
Yes, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
I can now, yes. Thanks, Mr. And the applicant, Alison Rogers, with Mr. Paul Needs.
Yes, I can see and hear you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. This connection doesn't seem to be quite as secure as the last one, but we'll, as long as we. I shall now go quickly to the formal opening of the meeting. Item 1 on the agenda is apologies for absence.
I've not received any apologies, Chair.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So therefore, there are no named substitutes. Item 3 is interest. Are there any Schedule 1, Schedule 2 or other interests to be declared for items on the agenda today? Please could you do this by raising your hand virtually, and I will then ask you to speak to notify the meeting which item you have an interest in and the nature of that interest. I see no hands being raised by members, therefore I will take it that there are no declarations of interest on items on this agenda today. So moving on to item 7, we are dealing with just one application this afternoon. The second application has been withdrawn from the agenda. So this is the application to grant of a premises license in respect of Red Barn Events, Red Barn, New Groves Lane, Hampton Bishop, Hereford, HR1 4LD under the Licensing Act 2003. This is to consider an application for a premises license in respect of Red Barn Events, Red Barn at that address. The order of speakers on this application will be Emma, then Mr. Trezins, then Chung Tse, then Mr. Semper, and then Mrs. Rogers. Then we'll take questions from the committee, and I will then ask any more of the responsible, if any of the other principals have anything to add, and then the committee will be adjourned while we go off into a separate meeting room, and we will return with the decision notice. Are there any questions on that so far? No. Okay, so Emma, if you'd like to proceed on behalf of the licensing subcommittee.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of today's hearing is to consider an application for a grant of a premises licence in respect of Red Bank Barn Events, Red Bank Barn, New Groves Lane, Hampton Bishop, Hereford. The recommendation is that the subcommittee determine the application with a view to promote the licensing objectives in the overall interests of the local community. They should give appropriate weight to the steps that are appropriate to promote those licensing objectives, the representations, including supporting information presented by all parties, the guidance issued to local authorities under Section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003, and also the Herefordshire Council Statement of Licensing Policy 2015 to 2020. There are a number of options open to the subcommittee today. A would be to grant the licence subject to conditions that are consistent with the operating schedule accompanying the application and the mandatory conditions set out in the Licensing Act 2003. Grant the licence subject to modified conditions for that of the operating schedule, where the subcommittee considers it appropriate. C, to exclude from the scope of the licence any other licensable activities to which the application relates. D, to refuse to specify a person in the licence as the premises supervisor, or to reject the application. The reasons for those recommendations that it ensures compliance with the Licensing Act 2003. The application for the grant of the licence has received a relevant representation and is therefore brought before the subcommittee for determination. The applicant is Clay Pitts Limited. The agent for this application is the licensing guys. The date received was the 10th of June 2020 and the 28-day consultation ended on the 8th of July 2020. The summary of application is as follows. The application, which can be found at Appendix 1, requests the grant of a premise licence to allow the following licensable activities during the hours shown. These are as follows: films indoors, live music indoors and outdoors, recorded music indoors and outdoors, sale and supply of alcohol for consumption on and off the premises, Sunday to Thursday, 10 AM until midnight, and Friday and Saturday, 10 AM until 1 AM. They're also requesting late night refreshments, indoors and outdoors, Sunday to Thursday, 11 PM until midnight, and Friday to Saturday, 11 PM until 1 AM. 2 representations have been received from the responsible authority. These are Trading Standards and Environmental Health. The representation from Trading Standards has been agreed by the applicant and can be found at Appendix 2. Since the date of representation made by Environmental Health at Appendix 3, there has been an on-site meeting with the applicant and the applicant's agent. The applicant's agent has provided notes of that meeting in Appendix 4, and a list of conditions has been complied by Environmental Health for consideration by the applicant and their agent, which can be found at Appendix 5. At time of publishing with this report, these have not been agreed. Therefore, the representation from Environmental Health objecting to the application remains. So I do believe that some of the conditions have now been agreed and there are 2 further that are outstanding. No other representations have been received from either of the responsible authorities or members of the public. Any decision is unlikely to have any impact on the local community. There are no equality issues in relation to the content of this report. This report has human rights implications for both the premise licence holder and the residents from the local neighbourhood. Article 8 of the European Convention of Human Rights provides that everyone has the right to respect for his and her private and family life in his or her home, which does include business premises. There are unlikely to be any financial implications for the authority at this time. As relevant representations have been received, the subcommittee must determine the application under section 3.5.7c of the Herefordshire Council Constitution. Representations must relate to those licensing objectives, and the subcommittee must determine the likely effect of the grant of the licence on the promotion of those licensing objectives. The licensing authority must have regard to the promotion of the 4 licensing objectives, namely prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm in exercising functions under the Act. Further regard should be had to the statutory guidance under section 182 of the Act and the Council's own statement of licensing policy. The subcommittee should be aware of a number of stated cases which have appeared before the Administrative Court and are binding on the licensing authority. These can be, your legal advisor can advise you on those in more detail. In addition to this, it was stated that any condition attached to the license should be enforceable. There is a right of appeal under Schedule 5 of the Licensing Act 2003, and it states decision to grant a license or impose conditions. Appeals should be made to Magistrates Court and must be made within 21 days, beginning with the day on which the appellant was notified by the licensing authority of the decision appealed against. There is little risk associated with a decision at this time, as the legislation allows a right of appeal to the Magistrates Court within that 21 days of being notified of the decision. All responsible authorities and members of the public living within Herefordshire have been consulted, and they were able to make a representation or objection up until midnight on the 8th of July 2020. Appendices 1 to 5 can be found at the back of the report, and also the extra supplement that was published yesterday. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Could you outline, please, the two outstanding conditions that have not been agreed?
Obviously, Environmental Health will be able to advise on that further, but I do believe it's regarding the terminal hour and also a condition regarding access to a door.
Okay, thank you very much, Emma. Mr. Trezins, please. You're on mute, Mr. Trezins.
Can you hear me now?
That's it. I'll
Sorry.
come to you in a moment, Semper.
It's slightly unfortunate I'm speaking first because Chung is the lead officer on this case. I'm
happy to swap that around.
But if I'll just make a couple of comments, and I will be available to answer perhaps the technical questions if there are any that you might want to ask, because I've had lots of years of experience with dealing with noise and so on. So basically, we raised concerns because of the location and the structure of the building. The structure is very poor as regards noise insulation, and it is actually closer to people than sometimes people assume. If you go out and have a look, it's actually closer, and we have had complaints in the past, but Chung will be able to give you more detail about that. So if I could leave that as that, if that's okay with yourselves, then I'd like to do that.
Okay, I'll come back to you if there are technical issues that we need to address. Right, Chung, it's your turn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Iris. Thank you, members of the committee. Good afternoon. So today I come before you for a premise application review. The Environmental Protection Service was consulted on the application in June 2020 through the licensing process for Red Bank Barn events. The application detail, it is that a business that provides barn weddings and events facilities on a working farm overlooking the River Wye. The application outlined the operating hours for Sunday to Thursday, 10 a.m. till 12 a.m. and Friday to Saturday, 10 a.m. till 1 a.m., including live entertainment such as live bands and DJ. Myself had followed a site visit with Mr. Paul Needs, agent from Licensing Guide, and also Mrs. Alison Roger, the applicant. We had raised concern over the premises structure, the activity that it carries out, the potential frequency of events, and the proposed hours of entertainment with regarding to public noise nuisance. Considering the rural location and history of noise complaints regarding past events from this particular location in Red Barn. Now, as Emma has said before, following the discussions, a lot of the conditions had already been agreed between the applicants and Environmental Health. However, the proposed entertainment hours and door control measures have not. Therefore, our objections to this application as it currently stands. May I please ask kindly members of the committee to refer to the supplement document that provided yesterday. I'll go through with the members of the committee. So first of all, I'm going to go through the location of Red Bank Barn event.
Just a moment, I interrupt you, but our legal advisor has asked if you could say something on this. You're muted, Alice.
I will get used to the technology. We've only been doing this for 4 months. I just want to be clear, and apologies, it's taken me a little while to get to the point. This is an application for a new premises license. It's not an application for a review. I'm sure it was just a slip of the tongue, but clearly as
My
we're going
apology.
out publicly, we just need to be clear that this is termination of a new premises license.
My apology, correct. May I proceed? Yeah.
Yes, please proceed. Mr. Semper, I'll come to you in a moment.
Yeah, please. So please refer to figure 2, 3, and 1 within the supplement documentations. So the premise is situated in the south of Hampton Bishop, north of Home Lacy, with the River Wye in between. Now, the residential properties at Riverview Close in Home Lacy are situated on a raised cliff, roughly about 450 meters away from the premise. During the site visit, the applicant had advised that the previous barn wedding business location was actually in Whitehall Farm in Hampton Bishop. Now, the local resident had often raised concerns over the noise that were produced by these events, and as a result, the barn wedding event location had now moved to Red Bank Barn, which is much further away from the Hampton Bishop village, although now it is closer to the Home Lacy, to the other side of the river. Going on to the structure of the building, may I please ask the members of the committee to look at figure 4, which is a photo of the front of the barn view from the outside with large double doors in the middle and toilets to the right. Now, the premise is a metal sheet and steel frame agricultural style building with additional wood cladding on the front and the rear and the gable ends. There are 3 door entrances, a large double door to the front, as shown in figure 5, and 2 side doors located to the rear, as demonstrated in figure 6. There's a rear door to the left side of it. Now, the entertainments are proposed to be held inside the premises with the entertainment area, live band, DJ, and loudspeaker to be located at the far end of the building, with dining table across the middle and rear sections of the building, as demonstrated in figure 9. You see the dining table across, and towards the end there, that where the entertainment will be held. There is also a bar near the entrance, as shown in figure 8. Now, the main entrance to the premise was detailed as a large double door to the south side, which faced directly in the directions of the property in Home Lacy. There are also 2 smaller side doors to the west and east side of the building, allowing access to the outside. There are gaps on the front door which would allow sound to leak from within the premises. If I may ask the committee to refer to the figure 1 again, please. You will see the 2 longer double arrows showing the sound travel direction when the door is opened for the front door going towards Home Lacy. The roof and the walls of the premise are of poor sound attenuation property with the doors closed, and further significant reduction with the doors open. Now, music events of these type usually operate between 80 to 95 decibel in the entertainment area, with crowd noise can further increase these noise level, people cheering, especially in wedding events. Due to the rural locations of this venue, the background noise level will be very low. We would assume that be below 30 decibel, and the noise will carry over a large distance due to field structure in its pathway to absorb the sound. Red Bank Barn event had previously applied for temporary event notice for one-off wedding events, and in our records show that there have been 7 tenth applications in 2019. Majority of these events apply for live band music to show between 8 p.m. to 11 p.m., which is earlier end than the application for this premise license, which is up till 12 a.m. Sunday to Thursday and 1 a.m. Friday to Saturday, which raised one of our concerns. From our record, we see that there have been complaints in July 2019 from residents at Home Lacy complained about loud music and party noise from Red Bank Barn area. And these noise continues past 11 p.m. And there had also been a temporary application for that exact same date from Red Barn applied to it, attached to the number 102707-2019. The current proposed licensing conditions do not, in our opinions, ensure the premises meets the licensing objective to prevent public nuisance. Our main concern being the poor structure of the building that provide poor sound attenuation quality with extensive operating hours beyond sensitive hours, that is after 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning, and the frequency event, which is up to 7 days a week. As such, we propose the committee to kind of consider the following licensing condition. As Emma had mentioned before, that we have, myself, environmental health, and also the applicant already agree certain conditions. That is within the supplement document, the licensing conditions number 1 to number 6, those had already been agreed. 2 outstanding conditions yet to be agreed is number 7, the large double front door shall remain closed during the main event except for access and egress by disabled person or in the event of an emergency. And also lastly, no regulated entertainment shall be permitted after 11 p.m. Sunday to Thursday and half 11 p.m. Friday to Saturday with the current premises structure. However, we would accept a terminal hours of 12 a.m. providing that the applicant has carried out a noise impact assessment undertaken by a competent person to the satisfaction of the local authority and any recommended works to a suitable sound attenuation standard. That conclude my address, and I will give back my time and I yield. Thank you for members of the chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. C. Did you say the number of complaints that there have been in the last year?
Chair, thank you, Chair. So in 2019, there have been 7 temporary event applications, and there had been 1 complaint in July. Came in on the 27th July 2019, which coincide of a single tent application from Red Barn for that date. They had a wedding.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's
Thank you.
clear. Questions, members? Are there any questions from members on the presentations from Environmental Health? I see none. Mr. Semper, it's your turn.
Well, I've got a couple of observations before I even start, sir. The first is this. We've been asking to see this noise complaint since the meeting, the on-site meeting. Incidentally, your technical officer's report is incorrect. The on-site meeting occurred before Environmental Health put in their representation. So that's the first thing. This supplementary report, we have not seen it. These complaints and these supplementaries should have been put in 5 clear working days prior to this hearing. And to ask us to address them, sir, is manifestly unfair. I've been through our emails. We weren't even emailed that a supplementary got in yesterday. And this is the first we've heard about it, sir. But either way, I was on to Caroline earlier in the week asking where the noise complaints evidence was, and indeed put in an FOI. So at least we could see it, so we could prepare. Now we find we've been overtaken by events completely because at the very last minute, a supplementary has been put in that we have had no sight of, sir.
So, Mr. Semper, what would your preferred course of action be now?
Well, you do understand it's just not right. Now, I've got.
Well, I think we've.
Sorry, sir. I've got a presentation to give to you, but it's very difficult for me to address something that I'd heard about not 5 minutes ago.
Well, the options to the committee are one that we could defer this application, which means a further delay, which I'm sure your applicant wouldn't want. My view is that as only 2 conditions are outstanding, we should proceed as at the moment and then hear your presentation. And I apologise that you have not seen this, but our environmental health teams have been working absolutely flat out dealing with other issues, as I'm sure that you will appreciate at the moment. I am looking now to members of the committee for any comments they may have on how we should proceed with this. Councillor Milne.
I didn't formally put up my blue hand, did I, Chair? But yes, I would be happy to propose a deferment if this would suit the applicant, if he feels that he needs more time to take on board the submission from Environmental Health. Is that something that would meet with would meet the case? Chair, perhaps you could ask.
Well, let's check with the applicant when we've heard from the other members and our legal advisor. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman. I find myself agreeing with your own remarks. Since there are, unless I've got it wrong, there are only 2 outstanding issues, I can't really see why we shouldn't proceed now.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Johnson. Alice.
Clearly, if the applicant and their agent feel that they're being prejudiced by the late delivery of evidence, then we can't force them to go through this hearing. I think we do need to understand whether they are formally asking for a deferment of this application to another day, so they have time to consider this supplementary information. It is their decision to ask for a deferment. It's not really for the committee.
So I'll look now to Mr. Needs and Mrs.
Well, what I'd say, sir, is actually the content.
Hang on, Mr. Semper. Hang on. I think this comes down to the applicant and Mrs. Rogers, whether she wishes to proceed or not. Considering there are only 2 issues outstanding.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. I spoke to the applicant. She would rather us adjourn the meeting so we can have sight and at least look at the documentation and then perhaps proceed in an hour's time, etc., rather than defer it. That's what the applicant has said. Obviously, I'll throw that back to Mr. Semper.
I think, therefore, then it depends on the availability of members if we're going to have an adjournment rather than a deferment. I would prefer to continue. Mr. Semper?
There is one alternative, sir. You can disregard the contents of the supplementary that's been dropped upon us at the very last minute.
Considering that the supplementary information was delivered legally to us, therefore we cannot disregard it in that respect.
I would be guided by Ms. McAlpine on that, sir. It's pretty clear that there has to be disclosure some 5 clear working days before, and if it's not in, then it's not admissible, sir.
Mr. Semper, Mr.
McAlpine?
Your client has asked for an adjournment. That is what we're currently discussing. If she wants to make, I mean, it is slightly confusing having 2 agents for the one applicant in 2 separate locations. I would have thought you would need to take your client's instruction on what she wanted to do. We've heard she wants a deferment. It is not unusual, and you have been in many of these committee meetings where we've had supplements provided not only by us but by you. So it is clearly. I will continue. You have provided supplementary evidence before, so the standard process is if you can prove that you didn't receive the information, fine. I say we're talking about either an adjournment or a deferment, and I leave it to the committee. That is my advice.
Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Mr. McAlpine. Members, my preferred action here, having listened to the applicant, is that we now defer this application to another date. I shall go around to you in turn. Councillor Foxton.
Yes, I would agree with you to a deferment.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
I agree. Given your comments, we defer, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Councillor Milne.
4 also deferment.
Thank you, Councillor. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, that application will be deferred to another date to be agreed with our committee staff. Thank you all for your attendance this afternoon. May I now request that